begun. Quit talking. Hola, cage fighting connoisseurs. This is KidNativeBloodyElbow.com, and Dallas Winston is here messing up my intro because that's what he does. Dallas, you're in the dark. You're creepy. It's pedo bear time.
Well, that's why I was interrupting you. Don't make it creepy. It's just stealth mode. I do that kind of creepy though.
It's sweet and innocent. That's what we like to think. Anyway, we are here to dissect UFC 174 post-mortem. I guarantee you, I hope this is going to be the lowest buy rate pay-per-view of the year because the UFC is 6 months into the year. They have yet to have a hit event. They had a huge hit at UFC 168 to end 2013. Every single card this year has either been mediocre or disappointing in terms of sales, and this one, judging by the tweets that I saw I asked people on the Bloody Elbow Twitter, asked people to send pictures from the bars they were watching it at. Bars were empty. People were talking about the Mariners game. People in Vancouver were walking out during the main event, going out into the rain because they didn't care about the flyweight event. However, for people like Dallas who actually care about the fights, the main event was pretty sparkling. Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson, the flyweight champion, I think he's the best pound-for-pound fighter in the game, one of the best ever maybe, put on a clinic against Ali Bagautinov. Matt Hume versus Greg Jackson, battle of the great MMA coaches. What do you think about that main event, Dallas?
I enjoyed it. It was
because?
Good, although I didn't think the overall card was that bad. I don't want to tangent too bad, but this was the first event that I can even remember all this year, or even in the last year, that I didn't have to do like hardcore live fight coverage, have my eyes glued to every fight on the screen. That actually made a really, really big difference. So maybe that's it, but I didn't think the card was terrible. I didn't think it was great either, but it was endurable. If anything, the reason I said
now
that
was... That's $54.95 worth of fun, isn't it? This was endurable.
Yeah, well, I mean, so the constant theme of the show lately has just been that the UFC is, I mean, just like squeezing the trigger nonstop, and some of the hardcores like ourselves.
The juice run down its leg, if you know what I mean.
That's vivid.
That's a Led Zeppelin reference. They stole that from Robert Johnson and didn't pay royalties. But anyway, but for me, I was tweeting it because somebody was in the penalty box because. You know, you'd started tweeting about oranges or apples or something last week, and it was
did a
grueling.
Off giggle.
Yeah, that's good. That was cute. Cat girl, I love that. I found it painfully long, and just let's run through the main card. Verbal submission because of broken arm. Decision, split. Decision unanimous. Decision unanimous. Decision unanimous. We're talking about a $54.95 pay-per-view. No knockouts. No submission holds. The closest you got to a definitive finish was a guy breaking his arm in some mysterious way and verbally tapping
That was
out.
badass. That was a straight up chicken wing. That was like an old school.
That wasn't what broke the arm. That's what he did after Jimmo said my arm is broken, and at that point OSP grabbed the other arm and tried to do a chicken wing. The arm shattered on the tape.
So I didn't see any of that sequence in slow-mo. Like I was saying before, for some reason my computer just shuts down randomly. It did like 3 times, and that was one of the times. So was it absolutely confirmed that Jimmo was saying that way before he snatched up the chicken wing?
Yes, Jimmo says it, and then OSP attacks the arm, and he attacks the wrong arm. Jimmo was very clearly pointing to, I believe, his left arm, and it was the right arm that OSP was attacking. I got to give OSP the points for sadism. But and that's right. Well, I mean that's what the name of the game is. It's the hurt business, and he was trying to hurt his opponent. And you don't say my arm is broken. You say tap tap. You know, you tap. You submit. You stop the action. You don't say my arm is broken. Please save me. I mean, come on. But quick thoughts on the prelim cards. What? Don't sass me, boy.
I have kind of a counterpoint on all that. I mean,
well,
when he says my arm is broken, that's, maybe not tap tap, but you can bet that both the ref and that OSP knew that meant I'm fucked up.
Well, let's say you're in the cage with Chael Sonnen, and he says my arm is broken, and you stop fighting. Chael Sonnen punches you in the fucking face, right?
Yeah, but this is not Chael.
Well, you've got to act like everybody is Chael Sonnen, man. This is a cage fight.
All right, so you're just dropping all kinds of Kid Nate wisdom tonight. Everyone,
That's right.
people.
That's right. Because I'm about to take off for vacation in a few hours, and you guys can just eat it while I'm gone. Anyway, thoughts on the prelim? Any fights that stuck out for you?
Run them by me again. Let's see, Shockley and Sago. Sago looked all right.
It looked all
Uh,
right. Kind of a subtle grappling match, but he got the TKOs because he flattened him
oh,
out and started banging him to the ears.
Yves Jabuan. Well, that was very unexpected that he would use wrestling and takedowns to kind of overpower Mike Easton.
Well,
Not that that but
if you've followed Easton, like Chase B back in the when Easton was in the regional circuit in Virginia, Easton beat Chase Beebe on a decision, in which Chase Beebe spent all 5 rounds on his back with the hooks in, and somehow the Virginia judges gave it to Easton. Easton can't wrestle, and for a guy who's had years of private lessons with Lloyd Irvin, the guy who wants you to pay thousands of dollars for his MMA sensei secrets of jiu-jitsu, Easton has no jiu-jitsu skills. What Easton is a very gifted raw athlete, and especially since they broke off relations with Alliance and he hasn't been coached, poor Mike has nothing, man. I mean, he has Lloyd Irvin, who is an excellent internet marketer, but as an MMA coach, I think the results speak for themselves. And plus, he shattered his elbow before he came to the UFC, so he's never been quite the same fighter. But yeah, to see Yves Jabun, a kickboxer, a pretty mediocre kickboxer, MMA fighter for the UFC level,
MMA fighter.
demolish.
He's a
Yeah,
great
he's a
kickboxer.
good kickboxer, but I mean, for a UFC fighter, he's a pretty mediocre guy in the UFC bantamweight division. Mike Easton is still. He went into this fight as a top 10 bantamweight, despite having 3 straight losses. Now he's got 4 straight losses. I don't see any future for Mike Easton in this game, and that makes me sad because he's a sweet kid. He's a nice kid. I like this kid. I've known this kid for a long time. Haven't talked to him in years, but a great, sparkling, bright-eyed personality and an honest, good kid, despite the people he's mixed up with. And it just makes me sad all around. And great performance for Eves, though. I mean, he really did what he needed to do and turning his life around. But other fights, Tanaka versus Delorme, Sago versus Shockley. The
Hey,
only thing I have to say about that is it reminded me of a frat boy here in Austin beating up a crusty punk. Like he sees the kid with dreadlocks, the guy's spitting on him, and he's like, "Do I really want to touch this stinky dude? Oh, he spit on me. I got to beat his ass." That's pretty much what happened.
well, that's an
Um,
awful, venomous
well,
accusation
I'm just
based
talking
on
about the
appearance.
dreadlocks. I'm
Yeah,
talking about the
exactly.
dreadlocks.
Yeah,
I'm not
that's what I said.
saying that Shockley's smelly, or I don't say that I smell the sweet odor of reefer and patchouli oil and body odor and dog sleeping with people.
Jesus, man,
Come on.
you're giving me a lot to process. It's like one in the morning here.
All right, all right.
But
Anyway, go ahead.
w- damn it, I just forgot. Who's the fight before? Who is our new JMMA guy? Tanaka.
Tanaka versus Delorme. Pretty
Tanaka
impressive
looked
performance.
he looked excellent. He looked phenomenal. His
Yeah.
transitions were excellent. He was a lot smaller than Delorme, but man, he got mounted in the third round and he was all calm. And I thought, oh, this is 2 solid rounds. This is what a rookie does. One little mistake, and I mean, he threw Delorme off.
It's
And
that judo, baby. But the thing is, Delorme is also a judo guy, not to the extent that Tanaka is. What is it with Sean Shelby and Joe Silva that they want to book judo versus judo matches? Because this is a pet peeve of mine. I talk about this all the time. But did you see the throw that Tanaka almost got on Delorme, but Delorme stuffed it because he's a judo guy too? It's like,
yeah,
why don't you want to let the fans see what judo guys can do? I think it's an all-American pro wrestling anti-judo bias. That's what I think. That's why they always have these judo guys eliminate each other.
Jesus, that's deep, man. Whoa.
Well, that's what the
Well, I have
Brazilian
to.
fans say when they have 2 Brazilian guys fight. You're making the Brazilians knock each other off.
Well, I think
Terrible
before when you
Brazilian
brought
guys.
this up, I had asked you for a list of all the judo versus judo matches, and just to move forward, I don't think that it was populated heavily.
There
But
aren't that many judo fighters in the UFC, but they tried to book Caro Parisian versus Hector Lombard once. I can remember that one, and they booked
I
and they
remember
booked
laughing and
Caro,
saying, "Wow, they tried to book one. That
and
makes
they
a really
booked
good case."
Caro against Roy Chonin.
It's Caro. He's not a corn syrup, Nathan.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. Caro.
And All right,
It's
let's not
Karo,
reiterate
dude.
this whole thing. I
All
believe
right.
it's Karo.
Anyway.
But so that was a case of, how Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belts back in the day were something special, and now there's many. And Tanaka and Delorme was an example of, yeah, they're both judo black belts, but that does not necessarily mean they're. I mean, he was a couple skill levels above, and he was
Oh yeah.
quick and
Well,
seamless.
second degree judo black belt versus a first degree judo black belt.
So, anyways, that was big for him to come over with a lot of hype, being undefeated, being the Shudo amateur champ, rookie of the year, and performing that well. So keep your eyes on that cat.
Yeah. Although beating Delorme isn't necessarily. I think Tanaka could move down to flyweight myself. Lightweights Tai Yung Bang and Cajun Johnson, the only knockout on the card. What do you think of that one? Or Bong,
Uh,
excuse me. How did I miss that? That was the joke of the night on Twitter. I was going crazy with the reefer jokes about the kid being named Bong, especially the knockout. Because did you see my tweet about that?
no, I think another reason why
Johnson
I
gets
enjoyed the night
ripped
was I
by
stayed up
Bong and
to
he
it.
passes off into Happy Land. Anyway, go ahead.
Okay, yeah, it wasn't too bad. I mean, that fight was kind of good. I don't think anyone expected that much from it. It wasn't like a bulletin for polished technique all over, but it was good. I mean, it turned
To
out to be
say
a
the
pretty good
least.
scrap.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was very entertaining. And that's the thing about MMA. It's all relative. It's about seeing two guys who match up well against each other, or two gals. It's not necessarily about seeing the best in the world. Sometimes seeing the best in the world is not that entertaining. And so we talked about Jabun versus Easton. Let's talk about Valerie Lee Torno versus Elizabeth Phillips. Unexpected, because
Good
Phillips
fight.
cracked her and busted her. I think she might have a broken orbital bone.
Orbitable. It's
Orbitable.
orbitable or debatable what happened to that orbitable. But
Yes,
I
that
thought
was very clever.
couple random observations. After I saw that, I thought the same thing, and I thought, why isn't the doctor like giving a glance at that? And maybe he did. I don't know. The cameras don't follow him nonstop, but that was worth like, hey doc, come over and take a look at this
Did
shit.
they
Because
have doctors in Vancouver, Canada?
I think I don't know, snake oil vendors, one of the
I see.
two,
I
either of
see.
those. But
Just
you know what I
enjoy
mean?
going
Like
to visit.
that was
I've been to Vancouver, lovely city, one of my favorite cities on the continent. Anyway, go ahead.
it's too late now. You've already offended that entire
Yeah.
nation.
People
Um,
were holding out buses, carrots to feed buses everywhere I went. It was charming. Anyway, go ahead.
But the only time I remember seeing someone get blown up like that was when Jones smashed that elbow on Brandon Vera, and it was the same
Ooh.
thing, like immediate.
Yep.
So I guess just for whatever that's worth, it was that bad. But for her to kind of, I mean, talk about like buck up, little camper, man. And I was pretty impressed. Some people were.
And wasn't she the one on the vivisection that you and Zane Simon were saying that she wasn't as tough as Phillips and that she wouldn't be bringing it? I mean, I think she put paid
No,
to that rumor.
no, Zane. Not to. Zane said that. I picked Laterno.
And that's why we call him affectionately that fucking idiot, St. Simon. He also was awarding a round to somebody who got knocked down in the round, and I was just like, dude, come on. Anyway, go ahead.
Wow.
All
So
right.
I thought Laterno, some people were saying that was like, come on, Rogan was overselling it. It was sloppy. Well, I mean, I thought Laterno's combinations, I don't know how you could describe those as sloppy for women's MMA. I mean, I think maybe people are holding women to the standard of men, which is kind of stupid. We should hold them to the standard of women's MMA.
Hey, but
Even,
aren't we equal?
well, not in the
Dallas,
cage.
are you
That's
having
why
another
there's,
politically incorrect outburst here?
well, come on, that's why there's weight classes
Sexist.
for men. Yeah, okay.
I
Um,
see.
there's only one woman who has gone out there and kickboxed like a man, and I think we all know who that is, and that's actually a compliment because it's devastating. You know who that is, correct?
That's Chris Cyborg.
Yeah. So, I mean, Laterno looked good. She showed balls, whatever heart. I'm not quite sure.
You're having another one of these stepping in it moments, Dallas. I knew
You should
you
have just
would.
let me go. If you don't pressure me on it and let me talk, I'll walk myself into one of those. But ballsy performance by both, but I thought Letourneau, Phillips in the third round could not even lift her hands up. She was that gassed out. She went to throw a jab once and like grimaced because, she took the fight in a week's notice. So good fight, kind of a surprise. I respect to both.
Indeed, indeed, it was very entertaining. I don't know that that was what you would call UFC caliber, but it was very entertaining. And then Kutamoto versus Serafian, the only submission on the night, rear naked choke. Pretty surprising performance from Kutamoto, somebody that some of the know-it-alls were kind of bagging on pre-fight. I flagged him as a talent to watch. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I should have listened to you. Honestly, that was shocking, and I'm I always make it a point when something like this happens. I never talk shit about the winner. I usually definitely just try to quit or talk shit about the loser. I always try to credit the winner for his efforts. But man, this is one where Serafian. I mean, I don't know. It was shocking, and like everyone was saying, there are. He's a weird selection for the Japanese MMA scene to bring over, and I don't know. He got the win. That was pretty shocking, and I don't know whether it was we slept on him, which I doubt because it's not like he's a new guy. But Serafian, whew, wow, uh, the hype train is pretty much crashed and
Derailed.
burned. Crashed.
Derailed. And same for Ryan Jimmo in the main event. Actually, I don't know. You can say that kind of a fluky thing to get beat by an arm injury, but I thought OSP looked really good. He solved the riddle of Jimmo's karate style, which it's not like it's Lyoto Machida or anything, but still, you could tell it was throwing OSP off at the beginning of the fight.
Tough matchup for Jimmo. You know what I mean? I think he did the best he could because
Other than
he's not.
breaking his arm and verbally tapping.
Yeah, and that's weird. That's his second kind of weird injury in the middle of a fight, right?
Is it? Do you think the
Isn't that
curses that I laid on him all the times I watched AXS fights on Friday nights where he was stinking up the place on MFS?
Yeah, it could be. Although,
Because there was a guy who hit on my girlfriend in college, and I thought bad thoughts about him for a long time, and he was hit by a car when he was riding his bike. So I'm just saying, don't cross Kid Nate, and if you're a fighter, don't bore
see
me.
out of all the things you give me shit for, did that really happen? Some poor guy got hit by a car.
He
Either
really
that,
did, yeah. I felt almost bad about it.
okay, because you had two options there. Either that was a really dumb fucking story that you were kidding about, or you're a terrible person and you're gonna burn in
I
hell
didn't
for
I
that,
didn't
that poor
actually
man.
make him have that. I just thought bad
You
thoughts
just
about
were
the guy.
bragging about that. All right,
Well,
let's
I'm
move
just
on.
saying. He was an asshole, okay? Here's a guy, I introduced him to my girlfriend at the time and said, and he hit on her with, why don't you dump Nate and go with me? It's like, dude, you can hit on my girlfriend bad enough, but don't, like, make your case based on me being an asshole. That's
I
all.
don't advocate fist fighting, Nate, but some type of person would have punched him right in the
Well,
face.
I wasn't there
Um,
at the time, but I did catch him in the elevator with two of my big homies, and we made him deeply uncomfortable, to say the least. And that was that was well before the
yeah.
bicycle juju. So anyway, I'm just saying,
Tiny elevator,
sorry,
and you still
Jimmo.
had to have two of your big homies with you.
Dude,
Hey
I'm
guys,
five
come into
five.
this elevator with me for a minute.
I'm
This guy's
five
a
five.
dick.
I'm 5'5". I'm 5'5". What can I say? I'm a little guy with a Napoleon concept. Whatever it's called, Napoleon. Come on,
Complex. It's
complex.
complex.
That's the
It's,
word.
com-
That's the word.
it's a
Anyway,
complex
so
word.
Ryan Jimmo has crossed me, and I think we're even now. Sorry, Mr. Jimmo, but we're all even. So looking forward to the rest of his career.
He'll
But
rest easy. That's the best consolation he can hope for after a loss like that.
the Kid Nate has pulled off the curse. The Kid Nate curse has been removed.
Put a root. You ever see Harlem Nights with Red Fox?
Of course, the late great Red
Bitch, put
Fox.
a root on your ass.
Indeed, yeah. But I think OSP, however, might be beginning to fulfill his potential. Maybe beating Ryan Jimmo isn't all it's cracked up to be, but I felt like he solved he's reeling off a four straight UFC win streak. He solved Ryan Jimmo. He was clearly flummoxed a little bit at the beginning, but he figured out, hey, I can just take down this dude and game over.
Yeah, and he was pretty smart how he closed the distance too. That was a big key for him. And I didn't know what Jimmo would do, and he mostly hung back and countered, and that's risky for exactly what happened. Is if you're going to do that, you better catch him, sting him really hard, and then pivot and get the hell out of the way. Otherwise, he's just going to wrap you up. And Jimmo was kind of light on his feet because he didn't want to get caught with his feet planted. But then the trade-off of that was there wasn't a whole lot of juice on his strike, so OSP was able to just come in and manhandle him.
Absolutely, absolutely. And let's move to the second fight on the card. Andre Arlovsky and Brendan Schaub, easily the worst fight on the card. A bad decision. I didn't think Arlovsky deserved it. Totally unentertaining fight. Schaub was lumbering in, telegraphing punches, and Arlovsky, for a guy who's supposed to be a boxer, couldn't land a counter to that shit. Like Arlovsky, it looked like the Tim Sylvia fight at UFC 59 or whatever, 59-60, where he broke both his hands in the first round. It was a terrible performance.
Yeah, it wasn't Arlovsky's best performance. Although during the fight, I was kind of thinking of this formula. You got two guys who aren't, let's just say, I mean, I don't want to say they're fighting for their job, but it's important. There's a lot of pressure on them. This wasn't just another fight for them. They both I was going to say desperately, that might be too extreme. They needed a win. And both of these guys throw with big power and have proven to be really susceptible to getting tagged with big power. That's kind of a weird,
Yes.
when you mix those two up and throw them in a test tube together, the result might be what it was, which I think was they were tentative, they respected the other guy's power, and they were, fighting like they were under a lot of pressure and they didn't want to get knocked the fuck out.
It's true. It's proof that what you need is baking soda plus vinegar to get explosion. Baking soda plus baking soda equals a nice, fresh-smelling refrigerator. That's all I have to say on that one. How about the science reference, huh?
Mr.
Huh?
fucking Wizard over there. That's
That's right. That's
baking
right.
soda plus
It's
baking
just
soda. What does it
there's no
answer?
way.
Soda.
We're
More
talking
baking
about
soda.
acids and alkalines, and what you had was two acids, and it wasn't like tripping balls. It was just shit. Ryan Bader versus Rafael Fajal Cavalcante. I thought this was a fairly good fight. I mean, a little bit dull, perhaps, for those who wanted a slugfest, but to me it was like a classic, how does a wrestler beat a striker type fight? And Ryan Bader executed.
Well, first of all, big respect to Ryan Bader. He's almost like a veteran now, which seems weird because it doesn't seem that long ago he was coming off tough, but he fights like a veteran, man. He fights really smart. When he postured up and planted that Rampage-esque, Pride era-esque knee to the body, I mean, that was
Yeah.
beautiful. That's a highly underused technique. I kind of, even though Fei Zhao was forced to defend a lot, I kind of felt like he sleptwalked through the first two rounds. I didn't catch who it was in his corner, but I mean, it was beautiful corner work because they were like, "What the hell are you doing? You're not even throwing your punches. Get out there and do." And he came out in the third round and did a bunch of shit that I had expected from the opening bell.
Yeah, if he had been that aggressive from the first, it would have been a very different fight. And honestly, right up until Bader got that takedown in the third round, I thought Fajal had every chance of getting a finish in the third round. I
Me
mean,
too, but
he
it's
had
like that
Bader back on
takedown
his
just
heels.
that takedown completely demoralized him. And
Yep.
I think Rogan. First, we should talk. I think Rogan was awesome all night. I'm loving his commentary. There's a bunch of little things he picked up on that he does a damn good job. Um,
Absolutely. I didn't like his shirt though, but go ahead.
he did mention, like, I think Fei Zhao, he said something along the lines, I think he's skilled on the ground. I mean, he's been a black belt in jiu-jitsu forever, training, under the Nogueira brothers and at Black House. So he's definitely a solid submission guy, but he was kind of content. And again, maybe it was just Bader's base was so strong, but usually you have just a lot of activity. You're always moving, and I don't know. He seemed kind of just, content to stay underneath and not do a lot.
Yeah, it was an oddly passive performance from Fajal, and especially for a guy who I think went into this fight with his back against the wall in terms of his UFC future and his career and everything else. Um, but I think Bader turned it around. This is the first time Bader's had two UFC wins in a while since he had the streak over Rampage, and I can't remember who else. But now he's beaten the Hippo. He's beaten Fajal. He's alive and well in the light heavyweight division. Fajal has some work to do. That brings us to Rory McDonald's complete deconstruction of Tyrone Woodley. That was like Jacques Derrida dismantling a George Will op-ed. I mean, that was just a complete outclassing. You know what I mean? I mean, McDonald had
Not
so
based
many
on that
tools.
reference.
Exactly. You know, any graduate student in philosophy would know exactly what I'm talking about there. But our audience is baffled. But look up Google Jacques
Yeah,
Derrida,
you nailed it
kids.
there. Our audience is baffled, but the zero amount of philosophy students are right there with you.
Exactly.
Way to be
Anyway,
dedicated
the
audience.
point is McDonald was on another level. That's the point I'm trying to get at. Woodley tried some things early on, but pretty quickly just had nothing and was backed up against the fence being toyed with.
I don't know what it is about Rory, but I think Rogan touched on this too. There's a commonality that just cannot be ignored. I mean, how often have we seen Jake Ellenberger standing there baffled? Woodley, I mean, after a while, I always have this thing halfway through a fight. If a guy's not winning, I always yell out loud to him, "What are you doing to win this fight?" I mean, you have all this strategy, you've done this training, now you're in the fight. What strategy are you going after? What actions are you implementing in order to try to win the fight? Because Woodley was, I mean, let's be honest, he was just not doing shit. Why did he go away from those right low kicks?
I
Those
don't
were
know.
crushing. And we talked about, everyone used to say the jab's the most I think leg kicks are the most underutilized, and I'm not saying
Well, I
no
think
one uses them.
The fate of Anderson Silva might be weighing in people's minds as they throw leg kicks these
Mm,
days.
well, yeah, so how many leg kicks have been thrown in UFC history?
I
Hundreds of
mean,
thousands.
sure,
That's
but
that's
how long have people like been training the leg kick block that Chris Weidman trained? I mean, you know that people are, remember the way the front snap kick spun around the UFC like dengue virus in Haiti after Anderson Silva showed against Vitor Belfort what it could do. I mean, everybody and their dog is training that Chris Weidman leg kick check with the intent of snapping people's shin bone.
Yeah, I don't know about that. You could be, I mean, maybe, that's
I
possible.
don't know about
But
that
either
either. I'm
way,
just running my mouth,
Wood,
but
right. So Woodley threw like three right in a row, and they not only landed hard, they lifted Rory's leg up. And I remember saying Rory, making a mental note, Rory did not adjust for that. He kept coming forward in that closed stance with that left leg weight on that front leg, and I kept saying, fucking throw it again. Why would you not throw it again? And he just completely shelled up after that. So
yep.
it's odd to shell up in a number one contender fight, and it's even more odd to do the same right after you've crushed somebody with three successful strikes. It was just weird. But I mean, credit to Rory, you know what I mean?
Maybe he hurt his foot or his shin.
Because guys are learning the Anderson Silva, Chris
No, I'm just
Weidman.
saying because frequently when a guy changes up his tactics mid-fight and stops doing something that's working, it's because he hurt the limb that he was using to attack.
Well, then I guess maybe he hurt both of his hands and both of his elbows and his other foot and his other leg
His
too.
brain.
But I mean, I don't want to be a dick because, again, it was just crazy. I mean, Woodley, I can't get over the fact that it seemed like he didn't, like there was this old thing in sales where there's this huge customer, everyone wanted to do it, and I was, every time some veteran would be like, well, the one way you guaranteed you're not going to do anything is if you never call on them, and that was kind of like what I was
Were
thinking
you
with
in one of these Glenn Ross kind of sweatshop call center things?
it wasn't. It was similar though, and that movie was actually referenced often in my
I'm
training.
sure. I'm sure.
But
ABC always be closing.
that's what I'll
At
believe
Bloody
me.
Elbow, I tell him AVP always be posting. Anyway, go
Posting.
ahead. Yes.
Never heard that one. So I mean, the thing with Woodley is if things weren't working, shit, you got to try something. I mean, after a while, he basically leaned up against the fence and covered up and blocked everything, and Rory just fucking styled on him. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
Didn't
I don't
quite
want to.
block everything either.
No, but I mean that's what he was trying to do. He was
Yeah.
literally pure defensive mode, and so yeah, I don't know. I
Yeah.
don't want to
Either
hit on
broke
Woodley.
mentally or he broke physically, I think.
Or Rory's just like some kind of like
He's a
underrated.
real scary cat.
How about those axe kicks? Not that they're super effective or the most like best bang for your buck, but if you can at random throw a fucking axe kick and not get taken down or even have it caught and still regain your balance, it's kind of
Yep.
gangster, especially
It
for
is totes gangster, totes gangster. Anyway, the main event, the fans, the crowd was clearly clearing out of the arena because during the Rory McDonald fight, there was huge cheers. Rory, Rory, we want Rory. During the main event, all you could hear was like the random woman from. It sounded like the woman that used to introduce the Pride fights with the weird screeching,
Len
and that's
Hart.
all you could hear in the whole arena.
Actually, it would be kind of cool to watch every live UFC pay-per-view with only Len Hart in the arena.
Exactly, just screaming in an empty abyss of echoes. But fan response, and this is, I guarantee you, going to be the lowest selling UFC pay-per-view of the year thus far. However, having said that, Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson, he's my vote for best pound for pound MMA fighter on the planet today. An incredible exhibition of skill and ability. It's sad to me as a fan of the sport to see such an artistic performance being put on and totally dissed by the fans.
Well, I'm kind of torn here. First of all, it wasn't just on this last vivisection that I was saying I had this bizarre, really, especially if you go by the myth or the hypothetical concept that all fighters are the same size, that no one would beat DJ. I mean, can you imagine JDS square enough with Mighty Mouse, but Mighty
Sure.
Mouse was the same fucking size. So
Yeah.
I agree with you on that. And he is, I mean, he's for real. He's just, it's been surprising how he's originally became the champ and then held on to it like a boss, kind of. But I got to be honest, even though like I can appreciate all that, this was an example where I'm glad I didn't have to be glued the whole time. I mean, I might have got up and checked the fridge and,
What? I
well,
thought you
yeah,
were a real fans fan, Dallas.
dude, I am. But I mean, I've been sitting there watching, since what, 7 o'clock, and I
It's
had to
true.
pee. I mean, these things happen in MMA. But it was a great performance. And I am I get off on a lot of like weird technical stuff, and I've even argued that sometimes Mike Pierce fights aren't as boring as everybody thinks. But let me just say, like, I'm not clowning on him for that performance at all, but he does not have a style that's conducive to anything but the hardcore fans, and even
Well,
me
the last
is,
fight he had a really quick, vicious knockout.
well, because that's appealing to every fan,
Well,
even
sure.
of other sports.
Yeah.
Anyone will watch that.
I don't know. I thought he was putting the hurt on Bagautinov. But yeah, I can see what you're saying too. It's it's like I'm the kind of guy who likes things like Jazz Fusion or Captain Beefheart, and then I'll go, why don't people like this?
Why
why
isn't
don't
this
people like
mainstream?
atonal music? I like Schoenberg, the whole tone scale, but somehow people don't like it. I don't know. Anyway,
Part of the reason the main was flat is because Bagautinov was surprisingly competitive, and I thought
yeah,
he had an interesting strategy when he first came out. If all the other fighters that Mighty Mouse has faced and beaten, geez, especially I guess Benavidez and Dodson come to mind. They all, I don't want to say tried to match his speed, but I mean they were bouncing around on their feet, head movement, and Bagautinov just kind of stood there like, "Come at me, comrade." I mean,
yeah.
he
I
was.
think that was an interesting angle to take on that. Did you notice if Winklejohn was in his corner at all? Did Winklejohn even make this trip, or was it just Greg Jackson?
I didn't notice.
Huh. Huh. Anyway, any other thoughts on the main event of the card? Is it all? We need to wrap it up.
I didn't think it was that bad. And again, man, being able to watch it leisurely and not like, oh my God, what score am I going to render for this round to go to MMA decisions, or what is my play-by-play? I can't. I either have to have my eyes glued to this. You know what I mean? It was
You
a
should
lot
take a
more
look, and this is probably private business, but you should take a look at how Kid Nate tweeted the fights tonight. I kept it strictly entertainment level. I didn't worry about scoring rounds. Fuck that. Nobody cares, and I just had fun with it. And people seem to retweet my shizzle, and I retweeted other people for the detailed fight stuff. But
Hell yeah,
find your own
man. So from now on, my guidance for all my work at Bloody Elbow is fuck it, who cares? Because I think I can thrive under those guidelines, actually. I don't know what you waited this long for.
Turned it, hoisted on my own petard. Dallas Winston has once again turned the tables on Kid Nate. What can I do except flee the country and go on vacation for 2 weeks? I'll be back after the June 28th doubleheader. Dallas Winston will be here. Eugene S. Robinson will be here. Zane Simon, Connor Rubish, all the usual MMA Nation gang will be here. So remember to subscribe to MMANation.com on YouTube. Follow Uncle Justice on Twitter. Follow Kid Nate on Twitter. Although I won't be tweeting about MMA on vacation, I guarantee it. And read us on BloodyElbow.com. Any final thoughts, Dallas?
Nay, none. I already gave him
None.
my thought.
All right. So be
Have fun
sure to
on your
take.
vacation.
All right, we'll do, guys. And adios, MMA aficionados. We'll see you in July for the big, big, big UFC 175 card, the biggest of the year so far. Can Chris Weidman deliver an audience? Can Ronda Rousey against Alexis Davis sell? We'll find out. No Chael Sonnen, no Victor Belfort, no Wanderlei Silva on that card. So, adios,
You
aficionados.
don't give
Have
the
the.
sign anymore?
Oh, that's on. Yeah, that's right. But you're in
Oh,
the
yeah.
dark, man.
That's
Nobody
right.
can even tell.
Yeah, they
Mm. All right. All right, Pedo Bear. We'll see you next time.
can.